Molly Qerim was no stranger to the world of sports broadcasting. With years of experience under her belt, she had become a household name for millions of viewers who tuned in to watch her sharp commentary and engaging interviews. Her presence, on screen, was magnetic, and her reputation as a tough yet fair journalist preceded her wherever she went. But on this particular evening, something unexpected happened. Something that would change not only her day, but also the life of another rising star in the sports world. It was a regular Friday night, and Molly was hosting one of the most popular sports talk shows on national television. The studio lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and the energy in the room was electric. Earlier that week, college basketball had been the center of attention due to an incredible performance by Caitlin Clark, a young player whose name had been making headlines across the country. Caitlin wasn't just any athlete. She was breaking records, shattering expectations, and redefining what it meant to be a female basketball player in today's competitive sports landscape. At just 21 years old, she had already earned legions of fans who admired her skill, determination, and charisma, both on and off the court. As Molly introduced the topic of Caitlin's recent game-winning shot during the live broadcast, there was a playful smirk on her face. She leaned slightly forward in her chair, her tone casual but tinged with sarcasm. "So, let's talk about Caitlin Clark," Molly began, her voice carrying a mix of amusement and skepticism. "Everyone seems to think she's the next big thing. I mean, sure, she made some impressive plays, but isn't it possible we're getting a little carried away here? Are we hyping her up too much?" The audience chuckled nervously at first, unsure whether Molly was joking or serious. Some nodded along while others exchanged puzzled glances. To many, it sounded like harmless teasing, a light-hearted jab at someone riding high on their newfound fame. But as Molly continued, her words took on a sharper edge. "I'm not saying she's not good," Molly added with a shrug. "But come on, people are acting like she's Michael Jordan reincarnated. Let's pump the brakes a little, shall we?" Back at home, Caitlin Clark sat curled up on her couch scrolling through social media after a grueling day of practice. She had been looking forward to unwinding and catching up on highlights from the latest games when she decided to flip on the TV. That's when she saw Molly's segment. As Caitlin listened to the comments, her expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. At first, she thought maybe Molly didn't fully understand the significance of her achievements. After all, Caitlin knew better than anyone how hard she'd worked to get where she was. Growing up in a small town, she had faced countless doubters who told her she wasn't strong enough, fast enough, or skilled enough to compete at the highest level. Yet against all odds, she persevered, proving time and again that she belonged on the biggest stages. But as Molly's mocking tone lingered in the air, Caitlin felt a pang of frustration. It wasn't just about being criticized. It was the dismissive way Molly spoke about her accomplishments that stung the most. For years, Caitlin had fought to earn respect in a male-dominated sport, often having to work twice as hard as her peers just to be taken seriously. Now, hearing someone diminish her efforts on national television felt like a punch to the gut. For a moment, Caitlin considered letting it slide. She could ignore the comment, move on, and focus on her upcoming games. After all, she had dealt with criticism before, and she knew better than to let negativity distract her from her goals. But something inside her snapped. Maybe it was the exhaustion from months of relentless training, or perhaps it was the fire ignited by years of battling stereotypes and low expectations. Whatever it was, Caitlin realized she couldn't stay silent this time. If she wanted to prove herself, not just as a player but as a person, she needed to respond. Grabbing her phone, Caitlin opened Twitter and started typing. Her fingers moved quickly, fueled by a mix of emotions, anger, pride, and determination. Within minutes, she posted a tweet that read, "To those who doubt me, remember, every record I break is real, every win I secure is earned, and every step I take is proof that I belong. Respect the grind." The tweet was simple, yet powerful, striking a chord with thousands of people almost instantly. Fans began retweeting it, adding their own messages of support for Caitlin. Memes comparing her poise to legendary athletes started popping up, and hashtags like "Marn Respect Caitlin" and "A Clapback Queen" trended within hours. Even fellow players chimed in, praising Caitlin for standing up for herself without resorting to pettiness. What started as a single tweet turned into a full-blown movement, with Caitlin at its center. Meanwhile, Molly remained oblivious to the storm brewing online. Back in the studio, she wrapped up the segment, unaware that her words had sparked such a strong reaction. As the show ended and the crew packed up, Molly joked with her co-hosts about the night's topics, confident that her remarks about Caitlin would fade into obscurity like so many other fleeting moments in sports media. Little did she know her life and career was about to take an unexpected turn. By morning, the backlash had reached a fever pitch. Social media timelines were ablaze with discussions about Molly's comments, with opinions divided between those defending her right to free speech and others accusing her of undermining female athletes. News outlets picked up the story, turning it into a national conversation about sexism in sports coverage. Viewers flooded Molly's social media, accounts with angry messages demanding accountability. Meanwhile, Caitlin's tweet continued to gain traction, solidifying her status as not just a talented athlete, but also a role model for young women everywhere. As the dust settled, one thing became clear. What started as a seemingly innocuous comment on live TV had spiraled into something far greater than anyone could have anticipated. For Caitlin, it was a chance to assert herself and remind the world of her worth. For Molly, it was a wake-up call, a reminder of the power of words and the responsibility that comes with having a platform. And for everyone watching, it was a lesson in resilience, courage, and the importance of standing up for oneself, even when the odds seem stacked against you. The morning after Molly Qerim's comments aired live on national television, Caitlin Clark woke up to a flood of notifications on her phone. At first glance, she assumed they were the usual congratulatory messages from fans and friends celebrating her latest game-winning performance. But as she scrolled through her social media feeds, it became clear that something much bigger was happening. Her tweet, a short but powerful response to Molly's remarks, had gone viral overnight. Screenshots of her words were everywhere, accompanied by memes, GIFs, and heartfelt messages from supporters who admired her for standing up to a prominent figure in sports broadcasting. What made Caitlin's response so remarkable wasn't just its boldness, it was the way she handled herself. Instead of lashing out or resorting to insults, she chose to rise above the negativity with grace and intelligence. Her tweet didn't attack Molly personally. It simply reminded everyone of her hard-earned achievements and demanded respect for her journey. This approach resonated deeply with people across the country, particularly young women who looked up to Caitlin as both an athlete and a role model. In an era where public feuds often devolved into chaos, Caitlin's measured yet impactful reply stood out like a beacon of maturity. As the hours passed, the conversation surrounding Caitlin's tweet grew louder and more widespread. Sports analysts debated whether Molly's original comment was harmless banter or an example of subtle sexism disguised as humor. Fans passionately defended Caitlin, pointing out how female athletes frequently face scrutiny that their male counterparts rarely encountered. Some argued that Molly's tone undermined Caitlin's accomplishments, while others believed the host had simply crossed a line without realizing it. Regardless of where people stood, one thing was undeniable. Caitlin's response had ignited a national dialogue about respect, representation, and the challenges women faced in the world of sports. Meanwhile, Molly Qerim began her day blissfully unaware of the storm brewing online. When she finally checked her phone during breakfast, she was met with a barrage of angry messages, critical headlines, and heated discussions about her comments from the previous night. Social media users had dissected every word she said, analyzing her tone, body language, and choice of phrasing. Many accused her of belittling Caitlin's success, while others questioned whether her remarks reflected a deeper bias against female athletes trying to break barriers in traditionally male-dominated fields. The backlash was swift, intense, and impossible to ignore. At first, Molly tried to brush it off, telling herself that controversy came with the territory of working in sports media. She had weathered criticism before and always managed to bounce back unscathed. But as the day wore on, the weight of the situation began to sink in. Friends and colleagues reached out, expressing concern about how this might affect her reputation. Viewers flooded the network's official accounts with complaints, demanding accountability. Even some of her co-workers whispered behind closed doors, wondering if Molly's comments would lead to professional consequences. For Molly, the realization hit hardest when she saw clips of Caitlyn's tweet replayed endlessly on various news platforms. Each time she watched the video montage of Caitlyn's composed reaction juxtaposed with her own dismissive remarks, she felt a pang of regret. It wasn't that Molly disliked Caitlyn. In fact, she barely knew anything about her beyond what she'd read in pre-show notes. But now, thanks to her poorly chosen words, Molly found herself at the center of a controversy she never intended to create. Back at home, Caitlyn continued to navigate the whirlwind of attention swirling around her. Reporters called nonstop asking for interviews and statements. Friends texted to congratulate her on handling the situation with such poise. Strangers sent messages thanking her for inspiring them to speak up when they felt disrespected. Despite the overwhelming support, Caitlyn couldn't shake the feeling that this moment carried more significance than just personal vindication. To her, it represented a larger issue, one that extended far beyond her individual experience. That afternoon, Caitlyn decided to address the situation publicly, not to fuel the drama, but to offer perspective. During a scheduled appearance on a popular sports podcast, she spoke candidly about the incident. "I've worked really hard to get where I am," Caitlyn explained, her voice steady and sincere. "And yeah, hearing someone question my accomplishments stung a little. But honestly, I don't think Molly meant any harm. Sometimes we say things without realizing how they might come across. What matters is how we learn from those moments and grow." Her words caught many listeners off guard. Rather than doubling down on anger or resentment, Caitlyn chose to extend empathy toward Molly. She acknowledged the pressures of working in live television and emphasized the importance of giving people room to make mistakes. By doing so, she reframed the narrative entirely, shifting the focus from blame to understanding. Her graciousness left audiences impressed, sparking conversations about the value of forgiveness and the power of leading by example. While Caitlyn's response earned widespread praise, it also put Molly in an awkward position. On one hand, she appreciated Caitlyn's willingness to see the bigger picture. On the other hand, she knew she couldn't stay silent forever. Ignoring the issue wouldn't make it disappear, and besides, as a journalist, she prided herself on transparency and integrity. If she wanted to regain trust, she needed to address the controversy head-on. 2 days later, Molly appeared as a guest on another live show, not as the confident host viewers were accustomed to seeing, but as someone humbled by the events of the past week. Sitting across from the interviewer, she took a deep breath before speaking. "First of all, I want to apologize to Caitlyn Clark," Molly began, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "Looking back at what I said, I realize it may have come across as dismissive or disrespectful, and that was never my intention. Caitlyn has accomplished incredible things at such a young age, and I should have acknowledged that instead of making a joke." Molly paused, searching for the right words to convey her sincerity. "I'm human, and sometimes I mess up," she admitted. "But I take full responsibility for my actions, and I hope Caitlyn knows that I truly admire everything she's achieved." The studio audience erupted in applause, moved by Molly's honesty. For the first time in days, the tension surrounding the incident seemed to ease slightly. Despite Molly's heartfelt apology, reactions remained mixed. Some viewers commended her for owning up to her mistake, calling it a brave and necessary step toward reconciliation. Others, however, weren't convinced, arguing that apologies shouldn't absolve someone of accountability. A few critics even suggested that Molly's apology came too late, speculating that it was motivated more by damage control than genuine remorse. Meanwhile, Caitlyn maintained her silence, neither accepting nor rejecting the apology publicly. Her decision to let her initial tweet speak for itself added another layer of intrigue to the unfolding saga. As the days turned into weeks, the story took yet another unexpected turn. What started as a contentious clash between two prominent figures in sports media evolved into something far more profound. Both Caitlyn and Molly found themselves reflecting on the incident, not just as individuals but as representatives of broader societal issues. For Caitlin, it reinforced the importance of using her platform to advocate for equality and respect. For Molly, it served as a reminder of the immense responsibility that came with having a microphone in front of millions of viewers. In the end, neither woman walked away unchanged. Caitlin emerged stronger and more determined than ever, proving once again that adversity could be transformed into opportunity. Molly, meanwhile, learned valuable lessons about humility, accountability, and the impact of words. Together, they demonstrated that even in moments of conflict, growth and understanding were possible, if both parties were willing to listen, learn, and evolve. The fallout from Molly Qerim's comments and Caitlin Clark's viral response continued to dominate headlines for days. It wasn't just the sports world that was talking. It had become a mainstream topic, sparking debates on morning talk shows, late-night comedy segments, and even in casual conversations at coffee shops across the country. People couldn't get enough of the story. Some saw it as a clash between generations. Molly, the seasoned broadcaster who perhaps underestimated the power of her words, versus Caitlin, the young trailblazer unafraid to challenge authority. Others viewed it as a microcosm of larger societal issues, gender bias, media responsibility, and the double standards faced by women in competitive fields. For Molly, the days following her apology were some of the toughest in her career. Though she had addressed the controversy publicly, the backlash didn't disappear overnight. Social media was still ablaze with criticism, and many viewers refused to let her off the hook so easily. Memes mocking her tone during the original broadcast circulated widely, while opinion pieces dissected every aspect of her apology, analyzing whether it was sincere or simply a calculated move to salvage her reputation. Even her colleagues at the network seemed divided, with some defending her right to make mistakes and others quietly questioning if she should step away from hosting duties temporarily to allow the dust to settle. But what weighed on Molly most was the realization that her words had resonated far beyond the confines of her studio. She hadn't just mocked Caitlin. She had inadvertently dismissed the struggles and triumphs of countless female athletes who fought tirelessly for recognition in a male-dominated industry. For years, these women had battled stereotypes, unequal pay, and limited media coverage, all while proving themselves on the court, field, or track. To hear someone like Molly, a respected figure in sports journalism, downplay their achievements felt like a betrayal to many fans. And now, Molly was forced to confront the fact that her actions carried more weight than she'd ever imagined. Molly spent hours reflecting on the incident, replaying the segment in her mind and cringing at how dismissive she sounded. She thought about Caitlin's tweet, the calm, confident way she responded, and realized just how much grace the young athlete had shown. Instead of retaliating with anger or bitterness, Caitlin had risen above the situation, using her platform to inspire others rather than tear someone down. That level of maturity left Molly feeling both humbled and inspired. She resolved to do better, not just as a journalist but as a person, and began reaching out to mentors and peers for advice on how to navigate the aftermath. Meanwhile, Caitlin found herself navigating an entirely different kind of spotlight. Overnight, she had transformed from a rising star in college basketball to a symbol of resilience and empowerment. Her tweet became a rallying cry for young women everywhere, reminding them to stand firm in the face of doubt and criticism. Messages poured in from girls as young as 10, sharing stories of how Caitlin's courage gave them the strength to push back against bullies or pursue their dreams despite obstacles. Teachers wrote to thank her for setting such a positive example, while parents praised her for showing their daughters what true leadership looked like. Despite the overwhelming support, Caitlin knew that staying grounded was crucial. She made a conscious effort to focus on her game, refusing to let the controversy distract her from her ultimate goal, becoming the best player she could be. During practices, she pushed herself harder than ever, channeling the energy from the past week into fuel for improvement. Off the court, she leaned on her family and close friends for guidance, ensuring that the sudden fame didn't go to her head. "I'm still the same person I was before all this happened," she told her teammates one evening after practice. The only difference is that now more people are watching. And that means I have to work even harder to show them why they should keep believing in me. As the public discourse around the incident intensified, media outlets began digging deeper into the broader context of sexism in sports coverage. Journalists highlighted statistics showing how female athletes receive significantly less airtime and funding compared to their male counterparts. They pointed out examples of broadcasters minimizing women's accomplishments or framing their success as anomalies rather than the result of hard work and skill. Experts weighed in, discussing the psychological toll of constant scrutiny and the pressure female athletes face to prove themselves over and over again. Slowly but surely, the conversation shifted from Molly and Caitlin's personal exchange to a larger examination of systemic inequality in athletics. This shift caught Caitlin's attention. While she appreciated the newfound visibility her response had brought to these issues, she also recognized the importance of keeping the focus on solutions rather than blame. During an interview with a major sports magazine, she spoke passionately about the need for change within the industry. "It's not just about calling out bad behavior when we see it," Caitlin said, her voice steady and thoughtful. "It's about creating opportunities for women to succeed, whether that's through equal pay, better media representation, or supporting programs that encourage young girls to play sports. We can't fix everything overnight, but every step forward counts." Her words struck a chord with readers, sparking discussions about actionable steps fans and organizations could take to support female athletes. Sponsorships began pouring in for Caitlin, with companies eager to align themselves with her message of empowerment. Schools and community centers launched initiatives inspired by her journey, aiming to provide resources and mentorship for aspiring female athletes. In many ways, Caitlin's response had ignited a movement, one that extended far beyond her individual experience. Back at the network, Molly's bosses called an emergency meeting to discuss how to handle the ongoing controversy. Ratings for her show had dipped slightly, and advertisers expressed concern about associating their brands with negativity. At the same time, there was a growing sentiment among executives that Molly's apology presented an opportunity, a chance to turn the narrative around and use the incident as a learning moment for both the audience and the industry. After much deliberation, they decided to invite Caitlin onto Molly's show as a featured guest, framing the episode as a dialogue about overcoming adversity and fostering mutual respect. When Molly heard the news, she was nervous but hopeful. The idea of sitting face-to-face with Caitlin felt daunting, but she also saw it as a chance to make amends and rebuild trust, not just with Caitlin but with her audience. She spent days preparing for the interview, researching Caitlin's background, accomplishments, and advocacy work. She drafted questions designed to highlight Caitlin's talent and resilience, determined to give her the platform she deserved. For the first time in weeks, Molly felt a glimmer of optimism about the future. Caitlin, too, approached the invitation with a mix of emotions. Part of her wondered if appearing on the same show where the controversy began might reignite old tensions, but another part of her saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate the power of forgiveness and understanding. If she and Molly could come together and have an honest conversation, perhaps they could inspire others to do the same. With that mindset, Caitlin accepted the offer, eager to see where the discussion might lead. On the day of the taping, the atmosphere in the studio was electric. Fans gathered outside holding signs that read "Respect Women in Sports" and "Empowerment Through Unity." Inside, the crew worked tirelessly to ensure everything went smoothly, knowing how high the stakes were. When Caitlin walked onto the set, dressed in a sleek blazer and sneakers, the audience erupted into applause. Molly greeted her warmly, extending a handshake that lingered just long enough to convey sincerity. As the cameras rolled, the two women settled into their seats, exchanging small smiles before diving into the conversation. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary. A candid, heartfelt discussion about perseverance, accountability, and the shared responsibility of uplifting marginalized voices in sports. Both Molly and Caitlin spoke openly about their experiences, acknowledging their mistakes and celebrating their growth. By the end of the episode, it was clear that something remarkable had occurred. Two individuals who once stood on opposite sides of a contentious issue had found common ground, proving that even in moments of conflict, connection and healing were possible. The day of the much-anticipated episode finally arrived, and the energy in the studio was palpable. Fans lined up hours before the taping began, eager to witness what promised to be a historic moment in sports broadcasting. The buzz wasn't just limited to those physically present. Millions of viewers tuned in from home, refreshing their screens and setting reminders so they wouldn't miss a single second of the conversation between Molly Qerim and Caitlin Clark. Social media platforms were already flooded with hashtags like Dabber Molly and Caitlin Talk and Respect on Court, as fans speculated about how the two women would navigate this delicate yet pivotal discussion. As the cameras rolled and the theme music faded, Molly took a deep breath, her usual confident demeanor tinged with nervousness. She opened the show with a warm smile, welcoming Caitlin to the stage. When Caitlin walked out, dressed in a sleek outfit that perfectly balanced professionalism and youthfulness, the audience erupted into applause. It wasn't just polite clapping. It was a standing ovation filled with cheers and whistles, a testament to how deeply people admired Caitlin's poise and resilience throughout the controversy. For a brief moment, Caitlin paused, visibly overwhelmed by the reception, before composing herself and taking her seat across from Molly. "Thank you for being here," Molly began, her voice steady but laced with sincerity. "I know this is a big step for both of us, and I want to start by saying again how truly sorry I am for my comments. They didn't reflect who I am or the respect I have for athletes like you." Her words hung in the air, vulnerable and raw. The audience listened intently, many nodding along as if silently urging her to continue. Caitlin leaned forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. "Thank you for apologizing, Molly," she replied, her tone calm and measured. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong, and I appreciate that. But honestly, what matters most to me isn't the apology. It's what we do moving forward. How can we use this moment to create real change?" Her response caught everyone off guard, not because it was confrontational, but because it was unexpectedly constructive. Instead of dwelling on past grievances, Caitlin shifted the focus toward solutions, emphasizing collaboration over conflict. This approach immediately set the tone for the rest of the conversation, transforming what could have been an awkward exchange into a meaningful dialogue about growth, accountability, and progress. Molly nodded, visibly moved by Caitlin's perspective. "You're absolutely right," she said, her voice softening. "This isn't just about us, it's about the bigger picture. As someone who works in sports media, I've seen firsthand how female athletes are often overlooked or underestimated. And let's be honest, sometimes even well-meaning people contribute to that without realizing it. That's something I'm committed to changing, not just for myself, but for future generations." The audience erupted into applause once more, clearly appreciating the honesty and vulnerability both women were displaying. For Molly, this moment marked a turning point. She had spent weeks grappling with guilt and self-doubt, wondering if she'd ever regain the trust of her viewers. Now, sitting across from Caitlin, she realized that redemption wasn't about erasing mistakes. It was about learning from them and using your platform to make a difference. Caitlin seized the opportunity to elaborate on her vision for change. With eloquence beyond her years, she spoke passionately about the challenges female athletes face, from unequal pay to lack of representation in mainstream media. "When I started playing basketball, I never thought about breaking records or making history," she explained. "I just wanted to play the game I love. But as I got older, I realized that being a woman in sports comes with extra hurdles. People question you more, doubt you more, and expect less from you. That's why it's so important for us to support each other, to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down." Her words resonated deeply, not only with the live audience but also with viewers watching at home. Parents held their daughters closer, inspired by Caitlin's determination to pave the way for a brighter future. Young girls scribbled notes, vowing to work harder and dream bigger. Even seasoned athletes tweeted their admiration, praising Caitlin for articulating the struggles they'd faced throughout their careers. Molly listened intently, her expression a mix of admiration and reflection. "Hearing you talk about these issues makes me realize how much I still have to learn," she admitted. "I've been in this industry for years, And while I've always considered myself an advocate for equality, I now see that advocacy means more than just talking about it. It means actively listening, amplifying voices that need to be heard, and holding myself accountable when I fall short. Their back and forth continued seamlessly, each woman building on the other's thoughts. With grace and empathy, they discussed practical steps the sports world could take to address gender inequality, such as increasing media coverage for women's games, investing in grassroots programs for young female athletes, and ensuring equal pay across all levels of competition. Caitlin shared stories of mentors who had encouraged her during tough times, while Molly opened up about moments in her career when she doubted her abilities, but found strength through perseverance. One particularly poignant moment came when Molly asked Caitlin about the pressure of being a role model at such a young age. "Does it ever feel overwhelming?" Molly inquired gently. Caitlin smiled, pausing briefly before responding. "Sometimes, yes," she confessed. "There are days when I wish I could just be a normal 21-year-old, worrying about exams or hanging out with friends. But then I remember why I started playing basketball in the first place, to inspire others and show them that anything is possible if you believe in yourself. So no matter how hard things get, I remind myself that I'm not just doing this for me. I'm doing it for every girl out there who dreams of stepping onto a court, field, or stage and proving the world wrong." Once again, the audience erupted into applause, many wiping away tears as they absorbed Caitlin's heartfelt message. Even Molly looked visibly emotional, her eyes glistening as she processed the weight of Caitlin's words. It was clear that this conversation wasn't just about repairing a fractured relationship, it was about bridging divides, fostering understanding, and creating a roadmap for a more inclusive and equitable future. By the end of the hour-long segment, the mood in the studio had shifted entirely. What began as a tense and uncertain encounter transformed into a celebration of unity and resilience. Viewers flooded social media with messages of gratitude, calling the episode one of the most inspiring moments they'd ever witnessed in sports media. Sponsors announced partnerships with initiatives aimed at supporting female athletes, while schools and community organizations pledged to implement programs inspired by Caitlin's advocacy. For Molly, the experience served as a powerful reminder of the impact her words and actions could have. She vowed to use her platform more responsibly, dedicating segments to highlighting underrepresented voices in sports and collaborating with experts to educate herself and her audience on issues of equity and inclusion. For Caitlin, the episode reinforced her belief in the power of empathy and dialogue. By choosing to engage rather than retaliate, she demonstrated that even the most challenging situations could lead to growth and transformation. As the credits rolled and the audience filed out of the studio, Molly and Caitlin shared a quiet moment backstage. "Thank you for coming today," Molly said softly, extending her hand. Caitlin accepted it with a warm smile, adding, "Thank you for listening. That's the first step toward change." In that simple exchange, both women embodied the essence of what it means to rise above adversity, not through bitterness or defensiveness, but through humility, understanding, and a shared commitment to making the world a better place. Their journey from conflict to connection proved that even in the most unlikely circumstances, bridges could be built, lessons could be learned, and relationships could be forged that transcended differences. In the days following the live episode, the ripple effects of Molly Qerim and Caitlin Clark's conversation continued to spread far beyond the confines of the studio. The segment had been watched by millions, discussed in countless households, and dissected on social media platforms around the globe. What started as a personal exchange between two individuals had evolved into a cultural moment, a testament to the power of dialogue, empathy, and accountability. Viewers were captivated not just by the content of their discussion, but by the authenticity and vulnerability both women brought to the table. For Molly, the aftermath of the show marked a period of introspection and transformation. She spent hours reflecting on her role as a journalist and the responsibility that came with having such a prominent platform. While she had always prided herself on being fair and impartial, she now realized how easy it was for unconscious biases to creep into her work. Determined to do better, Molly began reaching out to experts in gender studies, sports psychology, and diversity training, eager to educate herself on the systemic issues facing female athletes. She also made a conscious effort to diversify her sources, ensuring that women and underrepresented voices were given equal airtime and attention in her segments. Molly's bosses noticed the shift almost immediately. Her tone during broadcasts became more thoughtful and inclusive, her questions sharper and more intentional. She launched a new series called Breaking Barriers, which featured interviews with trailblazing women in sports, from retired legends to rising stars like Caitlin. Each episode highlighted not only their achievements but also the challenges they overcame along the way. The series quickly gained traction, earning praise from critics and fans alike for its unflinching honesty and inspiring storytelling. It wasn't just entertainment, it was education wrapped in emotion, leaving viewers informed and motivated to take action. Meanwhile, Caitlin found herself thrust further into the spotlight, not as a controversial figure, but as a beacon of hope and resilience. Her message of empowerment resonated deeply with audiences across generations, turning her into a household name overnight. Brands clamored to partner with her, recognizing the value of aligning themselves with someone who represented integrity, hard work, and perseverance. From athletic apparel companies to tech startups, Caitlin became the face of campaigns aimed at uplifting young women and encouraging them to chase their dreams fearlessly. But despite the growing fame, Caitlin remained grounded. She credited her upbringing, her parents' unwavering support, her coach's tough love, and her teammates' camaraderie for keeping her humble. During interviews, she often joked about still feeling like just a kid from a small town who happened to be good at basketball. Yet there was no denying that she carried herself with a maturity and poise well beyond her years. Whether speaking to reporters or addressing crowds at charity events, Caitlin exuded confidence without arrogance, passion without pretense. Her influence extended far beyond endorsements and media appearances. Inspired by the overwhelming response to her advocacy, Caitlin founded an initiative called Court of Dreams, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing resources and mentorship to underserved communities. Through basketball clinics, scholarship programs, and leadership workshops, Court of Dreams aimed to empower young girls to break barriers and redefine what success looked like. Within months, the program expanded to multiple cities, attracting volunteers and donors eager to contribute to its mission. The partnership between Molly and Caitlin didn't end with their televised conversation. In fact, it blossomed into something neither woman could have anticipated, a genuine friendship rooted in mutual respect and shared purpose. They stayed in touch regularly, exchanging texts and emails about everything from upcoming projects to personal milestones. When Molly invited Caitlin back onto her show for a follow-up interview, the chemistry between them was undeniable. Their rapport felt natural, almost sisterly, as they laughed, teased each other, and dove deeper into topics ranging from mental health to the importance of representation in sports media. During one particularly memorable segment, Molly asked Caitlin about the pressure of being constantly scrutinized by the public. "Do you ever feel like people expect you to be perfect?" she inquired, her tone empathetic. Caitlin chuckled softly before responding. "All the time," she admitted. "But here's the thing, I don't think perfection is the goal. Growth is. Every mistake I make, every challenge I face is an opportunity to learn and get better. And honestly, knowing that my journey might inspire someone else to keep going makes all the hard stuff worth it." Her answer struck a chord with viewers, many of whom took to social media to share how Caitlin's perspective helped them reframe their own struggles. Parents posted photos of their daughters practicing basketball drills in the driveway, accompanied by captions like, "Because of Caitlin, she believes she can fly." Teachers wrote heartfelt messages thanking Caitlin for giving their students a role model who embodied grit and grace. Even professional athletes chimed in, praising her for using her platform to spark meaningful change. As weeks turned into months, the impact of Molly and Caitlin's reconciliation became increasingly evident. Sports networks began dedicating more coverage to women's games, recognizing the appetite for stories that celebrated female athleticism. Sponsors poured money into initiatives supporting women's sports, from funding youth leagues to sponsoring major tournaments. Schools and community centers reported a surge in enrollment for girls' sports programs, crediting Caitlin's advocacy for inspiring a new wave of interest and participation. Even traditional skeptics of progress couldn't ignore the shift. Critics who initially dismissed Caitlin's viral tweet as mere hype now acknowledged her ability to galvanize a movement. Pundits who once questioned Molly's professionalism praised her willingness to confront her mistakes and grow from them. Together, the two women had demonstrated that accountability wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a catalyst for change. Amidst all the accolades, however, both Molly and Caitlin remained focused on the bigger picture. For Molly, it was about continuing to amplify voices that deserved to be heard. She introduced a mentorship program within her network, pairing aspiring female journalists with seasoned professionals who could guide them through the complexities of the industry. She also advocated for policy changes within her organization, pushing for greater transparency and inclusivity in hiring practices and editorial decisions. For Caitlin, the focus remained on her game and her mission. On the court, she delivered performance after performance that left fans awestruck, cementing her status as one of the most exciting players in college basketball history. Off the court, she worked tirelessly to expand Court of Dreams, dreaming of a day when every girl would have access to the tools and opportunities needed to succeed. Her mantra became a rallying cry for anyone striving to overcome adversity. Respect isn't given, it's earned, and I plan to earn it every single day. Their individual efforts culminated in a joint project that symbolized the culmination of their journey together. Molly and Caitlin collaborated on a documentary titled Beyond the Game, which explored the lives of female athletes navigating the intersections of sport, identity, and society. The film followed Caitlin and several other trailblazers as they grappled with challenges both personal and systemic, offering an intimate look at the resilience required to thrive in a world that often underestimated them. Premiering at a major film festival, Beyond the Game received standing ovations and critical acclaim, solidifying its place as a landmark piece of storytelling. By the time the credits rolled on the final cut of the documentary, it was clear that Molly and Caitlin's story had transcended its origins. What began as a contentious moment on live television had transformed into a powerful narrative about redemption, unity, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Both women emerged stronger, not just individually but collectively, as symbols of what could be achieved when people chose understanding over judgment, collaboration over conflict. And yet, even as they celebrated their successes, they knew the work was far from over. Gender inequality in sports was a deeply entrenched issue, one that wouldn't be solved overnight. But thanks to their courage and commitment, the conversation had shifted. People were listening. Change was happening. And for Molly and Caitlin, that was enough. For now. Months after the whirlwind of events that brought Molly Qerim and Caitlin Clark together, life began to settle into a new rhythm for both women. Yet, the impact of their journey continued to resonate deeply, not just in their personal lives, but across the broader landscape of sports, media, and society. What had started as a clash on live television had evolved into something far greater, a movement fueled by resilience, empathy, and an unwavering commitment to progress. For Molly, the transformation was profound. She no longer saw herself solely as a broadcaster, but as a catalyst for change within her industry. Her newfound dedication to amplifying underrepresented voices became a cornerstone of her career. Every segment she hosted carried a sense of purpose, every interview an opportunity to shed light on stories that might otherwise go untold. Viewers noticed the shift. Her tone was warmer, more genuine, and her questions dug deeper than surface level statistics or game highlights. It wasn't uncommon for fans to reach out with messages like, "Your show has changed how I see sports," or, "Thank you for giving these athletes the recognition they deserve." One of Molly's proudest achievements was the launch of Breaking Barriers, the series that highlighted trailblazing women in sports. Each episode featured not only their triumphs, but also the struggles they faced along the way, the doubters, the sacrifices and the moments when they almost gave up. Athletes who participated often expressed gratitude for the platform, saying it allowed them to share parts of their journey they rarely spoke about publicly. The series struck a chord with audiences, particularly young girls who saw themselves reflected in the stories of perseverance and determination. Teachers reported using clips from the show in classrooms to inspire discussions about equality and resilience, while parents praised its ability to spark meaningful conversations at home. Behind the scenes, Molly worked tirelessly to ensure her efforts extended beyond the screen. She partnered with organizations advocating for gender equity in sports, speaking at conferences and fundraisers to raise awareness about the systemic challenges female athletes faced. Her advocacy earned her recognition from industry peers, including awards for excellence in journalism and contributions to social justice. But what mattered most to Molly wasn't the accolades. It was knowing she was making a difference. She often said, "If my work helps even one girl believe in herself, then it's all worth it." As for Caitlin, her star continued to rise both on and off the court. On the basketball court, she dominated games with a level of skill and composure that left opponents scrambling and fans cheering. Record-breaking performances became almost routine, yet Caitlin remained humble, deflecting praise onto her teammates and coaches. Off the court, her influence grew exponentially. Brands clamored to collaborate with her, drawn not just to her athletic prowess but to her authenticity and values. From global campaigns promoting women's empowerment to local initiatives supporting underprivileged youth, Caitlin's name became synonymous with positive change. Her nonprofit organization, Court of Dreams, flourished beyond her wildest expectations. What began as a small-scale effort to provide resources to underserved communities expanded into a nationwide network of programs offering mentorship, scholarships, and leadership training. Girls who once dreamed of playing basketball now had access to clinics led by professional athletes, workshops teaching life skills, and opportunities to connect with mentors who believed in their potential. Caitlin made it a point to visit as many locations as possible, spending time with participants and listening to their stories. She often reminded them, "You don't have to be perfect to make an impact. Just keep showing up, keep working hard, and trust that your efforts will matter." The bond between Molly and Caitlin only deepened over time. Their friendship blossomed into a partnership built on shared goals and mutual admiration. They collaborated on projects, attended each other's events, and supported one another through challenges big and small. When Caitlin faced criticism, online, a common occurrence for public figures, they discussed strategies for handling negativity without letting it dim their spirits. When Molly doubted whether her changes were enough to address systemic issues, Caitlin encouraged her to focus on progress rather than perfection. Together they proved that even unlikely alliances could lead to extraordinary outcomes. Their collaboration reached its peak with the release of Beyond the Game, the documentary that chronicled the lives of female athletes navigating the complexities of sport and society. Premiering at a prestigious film festival, the project received widespread acclaim for its raw honesty and emotional depth. Audiences were moved to tears by the stories of resilience and courage, while critics hailed it as a groundbreaking piece of storytelling. The film sparked conversations about everything from pay disparities to mental health, prompting calls for action from policymakers and industry leaders alike. But perhaps the most powerful moment came during the post-screening Q&A session. As Molly and Caitlin took the stage together, the audience erupted into applause that lasted several minutes. When the noise finally subsided, Caitlin turned to Molly and said, "This whole journey started because we were willing to listen to each other. Imagine what we can achieve if everyone does the same." Her words resonated deeply, earning a standing ovation that echoed throughout the theater. In the months that followed, the ripple effects of Beyond the Game spread far and wide. Schools incorporated the documentary into their curriculums, using it as a tool to teach students about gender equality and the importance of representation. Sports networks pledged to increase coverage of women's games, recognizing the demand for diverse storytelling. Even lawmakers cited the film during debates about funding for youth sports programs, citing its portrayal of the barriers young girls faced as evidence of the need for systemic reform. Yet, despite the monumental strides they'd made, both Molly and Caitlin understood that true equality required sustained effort. Gender bias in sports was deeply entrenched, and dismantling it would take years, if not decades, of collective action. Still, they remained optimistic. They knew that every step forward, no matter how small, mattered. Whether it was a young girl picking up a basketball for the first time, or a seasoned journalist choosing to highlight a lesser-known athlete's story, change was happening. One person, one decision, one moment at a time. By the end of the year, Molly and Caitlin found themselves reflecting on how far they'd come since that fateful night on live TV. What had initially seemed like a disaster had become a turning point, not just for them individually, but for countless others inspired by their journey. They realized that their story wasn't just about redemption or reconciliation. It was about the power of vulnerability, accountability, and connection. By choosing to engage rather than retreat, to grow rather than defend, they had shown the world what was possible when people came together with open hearts and minds. Looking ahead, neither woman planned to slow down. Molly envisioned expanding her mentorship program to include aspiring journalists from all backgrounds, ensuring that future generations of storytellers reflected the diversity of the world they covered. Caitlin dreamed of taking Court of Dreams international, bringing its mission of empowerment to girls around the globe. And though their paths might diverge at times, they vowed to continue supporting each other and the causes they cared about with the same passion and determination that had brought them this far. In the end, their journey served as a reminder that adversity, when met with courage and compassion, could transform into opportunity. It showed that mistakes, no matter how painful, could lead to growth. And it proved that even in moments of conflict, bridges could be built, lessons could be learned, and relationships could be forged that transcended differences. For Molly and Caitlin, the road ahead was filled with challenges, but also endless possibilities. And they were ready to face it all side by side.